Good morning. Thank you for joining the webinar. I'm just going to share my screen and then I'll get started, I hope. There we are. So I'm going to talk about effective and efficient improvement. I hope I've got the right lecture. Just yeah, I have. So I'm going to talk about effective and efficient improvement, and that's achieved through, in my view, through a quality management system. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what is quality, and I'm going to use Juran's definition, and he uses a couple of terms like a little q and big Q. And I'm going to discuss the different approaches to improving / managing quality. I'll discuss the product service specification or standard and its relevance to design, audit and inspection and improvement. The importance of process and process management will be emphasized throughout the talk. If you have any questions, it would be good if you could put them into the chat, and at the end, if there's time, I'll answer the questions. If not, I'll answer the questions via the special interest groups. I'll answer them in writing. So to start off straight away, I'll just go through the content. I'm going to talk about what is quality, and then the relevance of the service specification. In order to understand improvement, you've got to really understand the service design process. Then I'm going to talk about service audit and inspection, and then get on to improvement and look at the difference between what the NHS call quality improvement, QI, and what industry calls continuous improvement, CI. CI is a quality management term. I'm going to talk briefly about implementing improvement, but that will be covered more in the second presentation. And then we'll get on to questions and answers. This whole set of slides will be available to you either from a link in the chat or via feedback after the lecture in the special interest groups. So I've included some references of some of the books and documents that I think are really relevant to quality management systems. And I'm going to refer to some of the articles from these references during the lecture. The first one is rather old, but is very important. The second one, most people will have heard of Deming, and his book, Out of Crisis, is sort of a Bible for quality management. But the current major Bible is Juran's Quality Handbook. There's a new book called Toyota Kata, Managing People for Improvement, and that's got some really good sort of up-to-date views on quality management. And I've included some web articles here. This High Fives project is really good. It was started in 2000. Well, in fact, the interim report was published in 2013, and the final report hasn't yet been published. And it's to do with trying to implement standardized working practices within the NHS, which is a prerequisite really for quality management. Although the NHS will say that that's not the case and will fight against that idea. The NHS themselves have been trying to standardize some activities, and this national standard for invasive procedures is a starting point. And there's also a very good document on standardizing ward rounds. I've included a link to the Care Quality Commission, which is really important to the NHS, because they're the people that inspect all of the services, of course. And I've included a link to the Chartered Quality Institute, which isn't very popular. There aren't very many members of the CQI in the NHS, but nevertheless, it's a really good body that sort of manages our access to quality, and has just celebrated last year its 100 years. I've included some handouts, but the one that I really want to concentrate on today is this one, which is really how we get from a requirement for a service to delivery, and then to improvement of that service. And it's there, and I'll refer back to it a couple of times, and I'll compare that with what industry use when they're designing a new product. So we can see that the similarities between the two, I mean, they're no different really, other than the output at the end. But I will argue that the NHS produce a number of products as well, but they don't recognize them as products at the moment. So that's the starter. I'll go on now straight away to talking about what is quality. And there are two definitions or two versions of quality. They're not really definitions. And Juran is very good at these two, defining these two definitions, and he calls them little q and big Q. So here we are. Little q, higher quality enables, and this is written around product development rather than service development, but the two are no different. It's just the odd word where you talk about companies, you can refer that to an NHS trust, and when it talks about a product, you can refer that to a service. So product features that meet customer needs, that's little q. Higher quality enables companies to, there's the list, you can read it yourself. The major effect is on sales. The better little q, the more sales you're likely to get, but little q quality usually comes at a higher cost. Not only a cost to the person that's delivering the service or product, but cost to the customer as well. And you can make an easy comparison here. If you take an old Minor 1000, I don't know if any of you remember the Minor 1000. I've got one, and it's still going really well. Compare a Minor 1000 with a Rolls Royce. It's easy to say, well, in terms of little q, the Rolls Royce is much higher quality. But in terms of big Q, that's not necessarily the case. So we'll have a look at big Q, and big Q, higher quality enables, this is big Q quality. Higher quality enables customers to first reduce error rates. That's really important. When you get a Rolls Royce and it breaks down on the first day, you're not very happy. So whatever you buy and it breaks down on the first day, you're not very happy. Or if it breaks down prior to the expected life of that product. So there's a whole list of different activities that are covered by big Q. The major effect is on cost, and it's usually higher quality costs less. It costs less because you're not wasting money on rework and litigation and product returns. So all of those things really do add up as the sort of lean ideas show us. So when you look at these two definitions, little q and big Q, little q is predominantly how the NHS interpret QI. So a lot of the QI projects are aimed at improving the product features of the service that's being delivered. But quality management is all about Big Q, making sure that the delivery process is free from error, rework, failure, warranty charges, customer dissatisfaction, reduced inspection, and shortened lead times, improve yield, improve delivery performance. So there we have it. The left-hand side is QI predominantly, and the right-hand side is quality management. And that's a really good definition of quality management and quality. But Juran's not the only person that identifies these two definitions. If we look at the NHS definition of quality, and there's umpteen examples in publications of this, and if I just scroll down to page 4, we've got the NHS definition of quality there: safe, effective, and with a positive patient experience. Now, that's great. That's what we'd expect from a quality service. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if we go down a bit further to page 8, and all of these documents will be readily available when you get the link to the site. There's a bit more detail there about what each of those 3 terms means, and they are predominantly to do with little q. It's still a good definition for quality. Public health is a little bit more complicated, and they have got, if I go down to page 11, they've got a slightly increased definition of what they see as quality. They've included some additional characteristics there: equity of access and usage, well led, and resourced sustainably. Again, all very good. I think that they're commendable definitions for quality, but they're all mainly to do with little q rather than big Q. If you disagree with anything that I'm saying, then put a comment in the chat, because I'm quite happy to argue the case with anybody. ISO is the International Standards Organization, and their definition of quality is to do with big Q, because they say little q's down to the organization. If you want to produce a cheap product with a low price, then people will expect a cheap product. If you want to increase the quality of that product, then people will expect a better quality product. So it's down to the organization. You can set your own definition of quality, but that's the definition that the organization should be trying to meet all of the time. And below this, there's all sorts of definitions here for quality. And ISO 9001, there's a whole series of 9,000 documents, are to do with the international view on how quality should be managed. And there is a version of ISO 9000 specifically for healthcare, which I've talked about in the special interest group. Wikipedia, I love Wikipedia and use it a lot in my lectures and webinars, and they have got the 2 definitions of quality here. They talk about the meeting customers' expectations, and they talk about the efficiency and effectiveness of the process that delivers the product or service, and the lack of errors in that product once it's been purchased. So it's worth reading that definition of quality. Understanding the difference between quality improvement and quality management is really important. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that the quality in terms of the features of the product isn't important, but in terms of the CQC inspections, that's not as relevant as meeting the specification, how you meet the specification for that product. I'll come on to that shortly. So another view, an NHS view, defining quality. Here, once again, we've got the same terms for quality, and that's predominantly, again, little q, but it goes on to put a few more requirements into the definition of quality, which are becoming more big Q. Setting standards. Now that's crucial to quality management. You've got to have a standard that you can work to, and it's a standard that doesn't change every 5 minutes. It's a standard that's changed after a major review. So that standard is important, and I'll refer back to it. Measuring for quality throughout the production process or the service delivery process. And then we've got quality improvement, an active process that involves taking action, making changes, and measuring progress to an agreed aim. And that agreed aim should be the standard that you've set. Is that all okay so far? Mary Dixon Woods produced a paper. It's oh, wrong click. It was a while ago now, but it's really, really good in my view. Lots of things are really good in my view, but not everyone agrees. So here, I won't go through all of this now, and I hope that you will read it. But the title of the paper, you might have been familiar with it. Does quality improvement improve quality? So she goes on here to talk about how the NHS delivers its services. And predominantly, she talks about those delivery processes being poor, which results in the end product or the end service being poor. And the way to improve the end product is to improve your delivery services. And she talks about how someone that's working on a ward learns a process, and it might be taking blood, it might be doing taking the statistics or whatever. Then they go on to a different ward and they're told to do it differently, and they get very confused. So all of that's detailed in this report. And as I said, I'm not going to go through it now, but I hope that you'll have a look at that, even if you only just read the introduction, because it's all in the introduction as far as I'm concerned. So I've talked here about what is quality, but I've said that quality is two different things, and that's important. And quality improvement and quality in management are different as well. So I hope that's given you a bit of a feel for those differences, and you can go back and access these documents when you get the link, and you can come to your own conclusions. So the relevance of the service specification. And here we're talking about an NHS service specification or any requirement specification. The service specification for a new NHS service is produced by the local CCG. For existing services, the specifications have sort of come along after the services have evolved. So there's a little bit of what I'd call unengineering or taking a part of the current service to see how it meets these new specifications that NHS England and NICE have produced. And the service specification is used for trusts that are interested in tendering for a new service to enable them to design the new service and to decide if it's financially viable for them to offer the service. One of the things that's not happened in the past is services haven't been designed; they've just evolved. But that with the amount of IT and AI, and if you read the long-term plan, where throughout the long-term plan, they talk about service redesign, then it has got to be design. It's not just got to happen. There's got to be actual design activity that goes on, and quality management has got to be included in that design. So there are in existence specifications for all services that are delivered by the NHS. Some of those services have been around for a long time, and some of the specifications are fairly new. So there is quite a task to bring existing services in line with the specifications. But when you get an inspection from CQC, they inspect you against those specifications. So it's a little bit of an issue that if your improvement activity isn't in line with the specification, then you're not working towards passing your inspections and clinical audits. So the specification is little q, but the inspection looks at big Q. Does that make a little bit of sense? I hope it does. It's quite a difficult concept to put over when the situation of the NHS is as it is. Anyway, these service specifications, I'm sure most of you will have seen them before, but the CCG have got specifications for new services that come along and lots of other services. The link between the CCG specifications, the NHS England specifications, which are all here for everything that you can imagine, and the NICE specifications, to me it's still a little bit confusing. And when we look at a tendering document for a new service, you can see how confusing it is. I don't think I'd like the job of trying to work it out and then get it right first time comes along, and there's a whole set of new documents that haven't yet been translated into the service specifications. But I'd say that people delivering services ought to be trying to comply with these NICE documents if there's one relevant, and now they're coming along really fast. A few years ago there was only one. Now there's quite a number of them. I haven't counted them recently, but I think they're really good. Okay, that's the specification. That's the thing that we should all be trying to deliver, and those specifications should always be improved, but that's got to be done through the holder of the specification, not the trusts themselves. The trusts feed information back into the holders of the specification. But we have a look at a new specification, and this isn't one of the sort of standard services that are delivered by the NHS. Emotional well-being and mental health services. I just wanted to show you one thing in this document, and I've got to go right down to nearly the bottom, where it talks about the specifications that the deliverers of this service have got to meet. And you can see it's quite an extended list. And at the end of it, they say, well, if there's any other specifications that we've missed, you've got to meet them as well. So this service design activity is quite a complex thing until you've got your head around all of these service requirements and specifications that are in existence. But they're absolutely relevant because these are the documents that you get inspected against on clinical audit and inspection. I've just included one or two here. This is the regulation for service providers, and it's quite an extensive document, but there is lots of information available in how to comply with these documents, and everyone should be complying with this one. And the fundamental standards are here. That's another set of standards that you'll be inspected against on a CQC inspection. I talked about the national pay. I talked about NATSIP, this is the patient safety syllabus. It's not a specification, it's a specification for teaching patient safety. I just wanted to include that because it's worth looking at, because it talks quite a lot about process mapping and understanding your process in order to understand the elements that might harm the patient. And I talked about already, I mentioned the ward round report. This is a specification for ward rounds, and it's good. I think it's really good. I think ward rounds is one of the most important activities in a trust. That's what I think. And I've suffered from a few bad ward rounds in my time. Right, any further examples of standards and specifications? Well, there's quite a lot of them. There's a whistleblowing standard. There's duty of candor, and there's of course all of the standard operating procedures. I'll come back onto standard operating procedures later, but I think they're not suitable really for a quality management system in the current format. Okay, that's that bit. Service design process, really important. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because really the service design process needs to be done via service designers. The long-term plan seems to infer that the services will be redesigned through QI projects, but I don't see how frontline staff who undertake the frontline projects, the QI projects, are going to be able to redesign services. It's more complicated than that, especially when they talk about the implementation throughout all of the services of AI. AI is not something that you can just knock together. It's quite a difficult thing. There's a big difference between designing the service and designing the service to the patient. Both of them are absolutely crucial, but designing the service are all the medical equipment and medical knowledge and different techniques that you're going to use within that service, whereas the service that a lot of people interpret the word service as is how you treat your customer, how you treat your patient. They're both absolutely important, but which one comes first? And I'd say that the way that you're going to do the treatment comes first, and second to that is how you deliver it. A popular design tool now is the triple diamond process, and there's a document here that we produced via the first Q improvement lab, where we used this design tool to design the document that we finally produced, which was to do with service principles, and that's the interaction between the clinicians and the patients. And I go on to talk about it a little bit more here. And those service principles have been published on the Q website, and it was service principles for providing care to people with both mental health problems and persistent back pains. So each service needs this sort of document as another standard on top of all the other standards that are there, so that everybody working in that service has got an idea or a standard methodology or a standard for dealing with patients. And each group of patients, particularly ones with mental health problems, have got their own special requirements. And this document's very good, and it does go through in quite a lot of detail how you develop a set of service design principles. I'll have to try and speed up. I knew I'd run out of time. If you Google NHS service design, you end up with NHS Digital's view of service design, which I think is quite good, but I don't think that NHS Digital are going to be designing new services. They're going to be designing the IT elements of IT and AI and other digital elements of the new service, but they won't be designing the new service. But they seem to be doing most of the work. I can't really find anything on service design in the NHS, anything on the internet, and I've tried contacting people but haven't got very far. Here I've included how the Japanese view product design. Now, if you compare this with the diagram that I showed you right at the beginning, which is handout 3, you'll see the similarities. And the majority of the design activity is done in designing what's going to be delivered, the product or the service, or how you actually treat that patient for the illness that they've got. The marketing bit is done by the CCG, and they produce a specification. All of this part of the design is just meeting that specification, how you're going to meet that specification, and then it comes on to the actual designing the service, how you're going to interact with the patient to deliver that service. And these are the reviews that they suggest need to be undertaken in order to achieve a high quality big Q product. The little q part of the product has already been defined up here. You're not going to change that, because to change that costs you money. You only change that when the specification changes, when the CQC say that you need to improve your service. Improve the specification of your service. That confusing it is. I should say that I've been working in quality management for over, and I've been a member of the Chartered Quality Institute for over 40 years, and I've been an engineer, predominantly design engineer, for over 40 years as well. So I'm quite used to all of these processes and the difference between product design or service design and quality management. So it will be useful back in your own time to compare this diagram with the handout 3 diagram. Another useful resource for learning about design is FutureGov. They did talk at, I think it was the last live Q community event. FutureGov gave a talk, which was really good, and they've done a lot of work in the service aspects, the interaction with the customer elements of service design. So they're a really good resource, and they're happy to work with people that are getting involved in service design and service redesign. Okay, moving on then to audit and inspection. This is really important, and we've just had another major blow. The NHS has just had another major blow with the mental health trust that's in real trouble, and these issues are identified during the CQC inspections and clinical audit, and it's the specification that the service is supposed to be meeting that the inspection concentrates on. They want to see how you're complying with that and that service specification. So in my view, all improvement activity should be in meeting the requirements of that specification, and not little q, trying to improve the actual product or the actual service. We've already had a look at those two standards, and I don't know why I re-included them, but we'll just have a look at a CQ inspection report, the CQC inspection report, and there were quite a lot of areas in this inspection, and this is the hospital that's attached to my university, and you'll see in here, I don't know if I recorded which page, but when you come in to look at the report, it tells you, I'm not going to go right the way through it because it's quite a long report, but the report does reference the standards that you should be meeting in delivering your service. And they're all related back to the fundamental standards and the regulations for service providers and the actual service specification. So clinical audit, again, this is just an example that I just picked up off the internet. And again, it will list somewhere the standards that you're supposed to be meeting in this inspection. So there we are. This is the criteria. They should be meeting 100% the NICE guidance. The NICE guidance is just the standard that you're supposed to be meeting. So this is what they've inspected against. All of those elements of NICE guidance, they've inspected them, and they expect the standard to be met 100%, apart from this one where their score is only 80%. And further on in the report, it tells you what percentage they met. And you can see there that some of them weren't particularly good in the previous inspection, but they've made quite good improvement on this inspection. So it just shows how important those standards are and how important it is that you meet the requirements of those standards. And meeting the requirements of those standards is predominantly big Q. Improvement, quality improvement versus continuous improvement. I've already said that quality improvement seems to be predominantly improving little q, whereas continuous improvement is predominantly improving big Q. Little q is improved by changes to the standard and a redesign of the service. You can't just change the service requirement without changing that initial specification and the delivery process. I've heard the NHS, different people in the NHS talk about Toyota Kata and how good it is, and I've given you a reference at the beginning to the book. But to me, the most valuable element in that book is this diagram here, and the diagram talks about the nature of people's actions at the process. This is the delivery process, what people do every day when they go to work. This is the process outcome, the quality of care, patient safety, quality, cost, productivity, etc. And this is the consequences of these outcomes. It could be rewards or lack of rewards, feedback, which is most important, and litigation. Toyota, most of Toyota's management focus is here in the process, and that's continuous improvement. And the tools that are used for continuous improvement are exactly the same as the tools that are used for quality improvement. They're just applied differently. And I've altered this to say the NHS, Toyota say a lot of other businesses. The management focus is here on the output and the consequences. Unfortunately, the NHS have traditionally always measured this and set targets in this area. But I think that they're slowly becoming to realize they need to set targets in this area. And I think that NHS trusts need to start looking at their standards that they should be meeting in order to stop failing or getting poor reports from the CQC. That's an interesting view, isn't it? The diagram best shows the difference between quality improvement and continuous improvement. Right, making the case for quality improvement. This is a document or a website that the King's Fund have, and it talks about quality improvement, and it's quite good. It doesn't focus on little q. It does show a little bit of more reference to big Q. So it's worth going through that document, but there are lots of them. This is the scary part. Quality management will only work after a process management system has been put in place. And a process management system, and you might have seen this diagram before, because I have posted it on special interest groups in the Q community. But this is a process management system, but it also includes the continuous improvement requirements of a quality management system and quality control and quality assurance. So here are the processes that are undertaken by people when they go to work. They're predominantly sort of administrative and recording processes rather than clinical processes. The clinical processes are included in there, but aren't specified in the same way as how you record the information and how you organize your work activity. Now this is the process, and within a trust there are hundreds and hundreds of processes. But the idea of a process management system is that you do away with lots of the processes by making that work combine with another similar process. So instead of having two processes that have the same inputs and outputs but are different, you combine those two processes to make one process. And a good example of this is the ward round. Every ward has got a different ward round process, and the handover sequence. Most handover sequences are different from ward to ward and from work group to work group. But there's no reason why the basics of those processes should be exactly the same right away across the NHS, never mind just within one trust. And if everybody did it the same, it would be so easy to improve that process, and it would be so easy for everyone that was part of that process to have an input on how to improve that process. But because there's so many different processes that achieve the same thing within the NHS, it's very difficult to improve any of them. And that's why spread is so poor within the NHS. Again, that's just my view. So if you're interested in quality management system, you have to understand this diagram, and you have to understand process management. And it is a massive task at the moment for the NHS to achieve this, but it's absolutely not impossible. But they do need to start working on it now if they want to implement quality management. There's a difference between how the NHS see the model for improvement and how the rest of the quality practitioners see quality improvement. There's nothing wrong with this, but it's a little bit bland. You know, you start off by saying, what are we trying to accomplish? And it could be anything. Whereas this application, you identify a process that requires improvement. And you can easily identify that process if you've got a process management system, because for each process, you're collecting quite a lot of information and you're storing it on a database that will produce reports for you. So most of the hard work is done by IT applications. So it's worth looking. If you Google focus improvement or focus plan do study act, plan do study act, if you put focus in front of it, you'll get this diagram. So some people within healthcare are using this, and as a result of this activity, you update your standard work. And that high five report that I have included in the references talks about standard work. The NHS have produced a handbook. I think it was in the old Institute for Innovation and Improvement, which is quite good. I don't like the process mapping section of it. And I'll go into that in the next webinar a lot more. Improvement fundamentals are brilliant. I don't know if any of you have signed on for any of their courses. They're free, and they've got 4 main courses, and they've just brought out a new one, which I've done all of those courses, although it was sort of stuff that I already knew about. It was just being applied differently. And I've just signed up for this course, which is to do with lean, and it's really good, and it hasn't started yet, but it's worth signing up for, even if you haven't done the others. It starts on the 9th of May, and I'm looking forward to that. They're really good. If you haven't done any of the improvement fundamentals courses, then it's worth signing up for them. They're really good, and it'll tick your CPD box as well. The NHS, in their improvement ideas, have included quite a lot of statistical tools. This is just a website that is quite good at telling you how to apply those tools. And the run chart here, which I don't think is particularly applicable, because there's so much variation in NHS processes that the run charts can't work. You've got to have very, very little variation for that sort of thing to work. The first steps in implementing improvement projects is to identify what you want to improve. And getting back to this fellow who talked about structure, process, and outcome, this is the first book in the references. Structure is the way that the health system is set up, how it's designed, how the hospital is designed, how you've got pharmacy and X-ray and all of the other departments and all of that. So that is quite crucial to how you set up your processes. So then you've got process and you've got outcome. And this diagram, and this fellow talks about these different aspects of healthcare. And if you Google structure, process, outcome, you'll get quite a lot of information on the thoughts behind developing this model. The basic process. So I keep going on about process, but what is a process? I've already mentioned a couple. There's ward round, there's handover, there's invasive procedures. There are quite a lot of others. There's patient safety, the patient safety process. So the basic process is fairly simple. This is just a simple diagram of a basic process. So a process is a series of tasks that convert an input to an output. And this is what I'd call a process map. You don't need any branches or yes/no decision boxes. That's process modeling. This is process mapping. And I've said here, a process is a series of activities that interact to produce a result. So each of these tasks has a result that's passed on to the next task. And a procedure is a documentation that instructs workers on expediting one of those tasks. I've also said that there's a degree of inspection required at each of these handover points and at the output. And I've included what I've just said. Process mapping and process modeling are not the same. And it's process mapping that the NHS need to be doing, not process modeling. And too many people are trying to get people to do process modeling, which is an IT activity. It's easier to do process modeling once you've stabilized your process map. So I'm not saying process modeling doesn't need to be done. I'm just saying that we don't need to do it. I've talked about improvement projects and some ideas for improvement projects. Where do you get your idea from for an improvement project? Well, I'd say that you use your quality accounts and your clinical audit reports and your CQC report, or review that you've undertaken yourself on how you're meeting the standards that you're supposed to be meeting. If you want to be a bit more advanced, you can have a look at the NHS long-term plan and do some projects around that. You can create some service principles that I've already identified from a previous Q lab task. You can have a look at your customer complaints. It's funny when I haven't really got time to tell that story. We're running out of time already. Your customer complaints, patient surveys, quilling and the quality output framework. You can get clues for improvement projects through all of those. And finally, then improvement implementation. I don't know how a lot of the QI projects are implemented. I guess quite a lot of them aren't, because they cost money and they require change. There certainly isn't any spread across the NHS from individual improvement projects, which is a crying shame. And to be a bit nasty, the Q exchange projects in Q have really got very little spread. So spread isn't easy when you're changing the specification. Spread is really easy when you're changing big Q and everybody's using the same big Q processes. So I've said the implication should be an easy step. The process redesign or improvement has been well documented and trialed, and relevant staff have been trained, and all changes have been approved by management. Once a new process is being followed, careful monitoring and data collection and data analysis must be pre-planned and instigated for a predetermined period. And this is to ensure that no previously unidentified errors are detected, and rectified. And are rectified, I should have said. Now, this is different from improvement via the little q definition of quality. This is improvement via the big Q definition of quality. And finally, so once you this activity, reviewing your improvement, you can use a couple of tools. You can use failure mode and effect analysis, which is done during the design stage, and the quality service improvement and redesign tools are all listed. There's links here. They're all listed on an NHS website, and there's hundreds of them. Most of them are totally irrelevant, but they are all there, and you can take your pick. You certainly don't need that many tools to either do an improvement or a redesign, but they're all there, and you can pick and choose. There's only one or two that I think are really relevant, and the most important one to me is understanding your process and being able to visualize that process through a process map or a process visualization, which will be the main theme of the part 2 of this pair of webinars.